Okay, thank you for joining. This is Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. Where is the curve bringing us in? We don't know where it is. I mean, we know it's in their minds. We know where the curverts are. They readily identify themselves. Curvert pride. They take a lot of pride in it. But the real curverts, the ones who bend the horizon, also bend our news, they bend our reality, they bend our internal concept of the world. Humanity has been bent by the power elite, and they don't even know it. All right, weaving spiders come not here. It's the image on the screen. That's actually the image from the Bohemian Grove, but they have an owl instead of a penguin. But that's one of their mottos is weaving spiders come not here. And when I say it, I'm referring to propaganda mules, fear pornographers. I'm talking about the mind-controlled fringe who haven't quite jumped over the gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers are becoming increasingly obvious, so obvious that many of them are calling others out as gatekeepers in order to make it seem like there's some areas on the internet where there is truth. For example, David Icke calling Alex Jones a shill, and these types of back and forths as though one of them is more credible than the other. But no, they're both actors in the sense that they're both operating on the world stage as a given. Doesn't matter their intentions. You might say, well, maybe they don't know. Okay, well, fine. You're insulting their intelligence then. Better to assume you're dealing with intelligent manipulators who are part of the game than to actually give them benefit of the doubt and think maybe they're just harmless dupes. Because there's no one really harmless in this sense. Or at least there's no moral high ground immediately automatically granted to anyone who claims to be a truther. Because a lot of what they're spreading is toxic and really just regressive. I mean, we're really past a lot of this stuff, and you'll see what I mean. Because if you're anywhere to the right of Mao and you're on the world stage taking a position, you're being associated with all kinds of real nasty characters, and it's all by design. Like, I'm not behind the QAnon shaman, but there's a point where you mix with the crowd, they smear you with that, and that's all we see right now is a major league smear campaign. And this border issue is getting interesting. But more interesting now, I think, and I think, obviously pathological, is the blowback against Taylor Swift. And it's getting really interesting. Like, from a Metascript perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if this Super Bowl has Trump and Swift maybe simultaneously getting capped, and then somebody nukes the stadium. If you just look at the buildup, as you'll see. All right, and we'll be handing out wrenches, so if you're in the chat, just say hello, and those will be passed out later on this evening. We are joined by Diana South, Peace Circle 360, Johnny's List, Elephant Tusks, A Garcia 737, Matt X, AJ206, Knight Rider says, Tim is the man, love your shows, thank you for joining. Frank Murr, Gematria 101, yes, and Michelle Kastner will be getting a wrench. And yeah, if you've ever had a wrench before, and you don't have one now, it's only because we're truly censored. And we've had dozens of channels taken out by some guy who works at the White House. But that's in the past. I mean, we've overcome that particular obstacle. But that issue's coming to a head. Mark your calendars. May 13th, 2024, IPS versus Google/YouTube and our channel stalker, White House Press Corps member MG. There's going to be a meeting, a pre-trial meeting in Redwood City, California. So something to look forward to. Resolution. In fact, I spoke with Google's attorneys last week, and they told me that their basic response is going to be to do what they always do, which I've dealt with this before. Attempts to dismiss, challenge all of my claims and all of my causes of action, but I'm pretty confident it's going to move forward swimmingly. I'm still trying to serve Goldfinch, have an address, working on it, and if it doesn't work out, we'll have a backup measure run by the judge. Elephant Tusk says, I should say all the hype regarding the border at the moment has been going on for years. It's all distraction. Yeah, it's been going on for years, but I think it's part of a bigger psyop targeting the right wing with intense levels of insecurity. Like, oh, I'm insecure now because Tucker Carlson said the aliens are demons and they're dark. He uses those words. They're dark. They're demons. Okay, so now the right wing, and I'm just talking almost in a caricature sense, but things are divided along these lines. And if you look at the orthodoxies and the opinions, the consensuses that exist, to the right, aliens are now a threat. So now they're xenophobic against aliens because they're dark and from far away. But then they're also very insecure now about the southern border because they've been told that African military age men are being imported and they're going to kill us all. So there you have another one. What? People from far away, people who are dark. Again, you're having these reoccurring themes being introduced. And then you have all these scenes being promoted by right wing influencers of violence on subways, violence in the inner cities. Alex Jones posted one today. And it's like, get out of the cities. Get out while you still can. So border security is now being challenged. The Earth's atmosphere is being invaded by aliens, or that's a potential threat. And then your home could be invaded by the communists. So now you have that border to defend. And then finally, you got to deal with the border of your skin. And they're trying to needle you on that point, pun intended. They're like, we want to get through that border. It must be porous or you're a bigot. So on every single level, the right is being conditioned to close up walls, to border themselves in. Block your skin, block your door, block the border. Space Force, President Trump, protect us from the aliens, who the Democrats invite. The Democrats are like, we believe in scientism. We want the aliens. They're grays. They're genderless, raceless, and they don't believe in nations. They're also open borders. They're also obviously pro home invasion because they hate guns, and they're also pro vax. So, anyway, down the line, left and right, porous and closed. That's psychological warfare. That's not real politics. So, I hope no one here is falling for any of it. 737 says Taylor Swift, he sounds fast. I never listened to Taylor Swift until just the other day, and somehow I managed to dodge that bullet. I guess I've heard it before, but it's the type of music that I used to just tune out automatically. I filtered it. Like you walk by a TV, it's on, it's CNN, and you're like, oh yeah, it's BS. Your BS detector just causes it to bounce off of your periphery, it doesn't get in. It's usually like that with that kind of music. And I'm not knocking her music or her fans. I'm sure she's talented and great, whatever. I don't care. My point of it is, she's a propaganda tool who rose to extreme prominence at the age of 33, and she's totally connected with this Super Bowl psyop that's incoming. And we've made further connections between the Blackout Bowl from 2013 with Beyonce and this upcoming bowl, which seems to represent the opposite side of this Beyonce Swift thing, which is a thing. If you remember, Ye jumping on stage to take the trophy from Swift and say Beyonce deserves it. There's a meta narrative here. It's been going for the last 10 years between, and I think there's something building. And now we're seeing this. First of all, if you didn't know this, back in 2015, 2016, the alt-right, far-right, whatever you want to call them, the 4chan types, they loved what they called Princess Tay, Princess Taylor, or Princess Tay Tay. They weirdly loved her. They said she was their Aryan princess ideal. And so blonde hair, blue-eyed Princess Taylor was this venerated figure on all these disturbing boards, for the 4chan types, and who later became Q, the QAnons. Now, interestingly, she switched sides, and so they see her as a big-time traitor. And this seems to be part of an ongoing build-up here. So, for example, Christian McCaffrey's mom says Taylor Swift is dead to us ahead of the Super Bowl. This is an article that just came out today, posted by Synchromorpheus and Gilded. Look, if you're not up to date, if you're not cutting edge on your Taylor Swift research, you got to join our Discord server, join our Gilded, go to ips.monster. Christian McCaffrey's mom says Taylor Swift is dead to us. Now, we've already seen connections being made between Princess Diana and Taylor Swift. I talked about this the other day, all the number 13 stuff. There's suggestions here that there's some anger from the right directed at her, as you'll see. But interestingly here, ahead of the Super Bowl, Christian McCaffrey's mom says that she's boycotting Taylor Swift, who's dating the Chiefs tight end, Travis Kelce. On February 11th, the 49ers will take on the Kansas City Chiefs, but drama is unfolding between the sides as she's dating Travis Kelce, who's facing off against Lisa's son, Christian McCaffrey. But anyway, I refuse to listen to Taylor Swift songs for the next couple of days, she said. I love her, but we're boycotting her songs. And she's dead to us this week. So maybe they're just joking, but the headlines are what I'm pointing out here. And this is where it seems to be heading. And then on the Trump side of the fence, we're talking about still these upcoming psyops. Just last week, we were discussing the Atlantic, where it had the bullet hole, and then it had the $47. And Laura Loomer came out saying, "Hey, this is predicting a headshot on Trump." And she said it was a threat. We were just pointing it out. This is just typical par for the course predictive programming. But look at this. The Trump admin, Mike Gill, who was shot during a carjacking, actually died. Mike Gill, married father of three, who was a member of Trump's administration, has died. He was shot during a deadly carjacking rampage in D.C. Monday night. So when you look at the headlines, you just see like Trump, shooter, D.C., dead. It's like meme warfare or sowing the seeds, planting the seeds, placing the ideas there, expanding your frame of reference. So there's something going on there. And we've been talking about the martyrdom of Trump, the ongoing Christification of Trump. And for example, John Voight, who has a lot of clout with the right wing, they love their right wing actors who pretend like they're being oppressed by the Hollywood elite, like they're not part of the show. But here he is talking about how Trump is being persecuted like Christ.
Believe that the man that can help this nation, the one man that was ridiculed, destroyed as Jesus, Trump.
As Jesus, Trump. And one other point here. Trump was arrested on 4/4/2023 in front of that courthouse. Coincidentally, Joker 2 is being filmed there. This was Holy Week. That was the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination. This was following his own followers calling him Jesus. Saturday Night Live actually had him as Jesus at the Last Supper. So Last Supper stuff. But that very suit that Donald Christ wore that day, he had chopped up into 47 pieces so it could be auctioned off, which is straight out of the Bible when Jesus has his garments ripped off and auctioned. What we're seeing here is the intentional patterning, the intentional association with Christ, because part of it's part of this oncoming psyop. But let's continue to listen to what this very credible man is saying.
Jesus, Trump, can come back and save the American dream for all and make America great with the dignity, with the power of who she is, the land of freedom, God's land, God's glory.
Wait, he just gendered America as a she. And if you think about it, and we've done this before, if you really go into the meaning of MAGA, it means witch. MAGA is a feminine form of like magus. So like if Gandalf got married, it would be a MAGA, magus and a MAGA. So the MAGA could also reference a sorceress like the Whore of Babylon who wears scarlet on her head and across her brow it says Babylon the Fallen. What does MAGA mean? It means America the Fallen. Make America great again. America sucks now. America fell. So across his brow, scarlet hat, America has fallen, says the sorceress who's vaxing the world with her pharmaceuticals. So in other words, Trump is probably the Whore of Babylon more than Christ. But he's got a lot of people fooled. Okay, moving on. There's so much here. Now, really quick, I also want to jump into this topic. So we're talking about Taylor Swift and the ominous predictive programming buildup towards something happening to her, specifically as a result of antagonizing the MAGAs. Now, the Trump assassination stuff has been building up again, and you're going to see it's getting even thicker in the mainstream area with Alex Jones promoting this theory, saying it's going to happen. In fact, Alex Jones wants it to happen because then the MAGAs can go ham on the deep state. It'll be like, that's the starting shot before they finally drain the swamp. Retaliation. But then there's this. There's a lot of stuff about Vegas about to get nuked, and we were checking out Atomic City. U2 drops Atomic City before christening the sphere. So in Vegas, Atomic City, which is a song about Vegas, and you have Vegas Fallout. So there's a lot of nuke detonation stuff and something, and someone even pointed out that maybe the Blackout Bowl and this upcoming bowl are connected, as in this is going to be like blackout, whiteout, the opposite. And a nuclear detonation would begin with a bright flash, which you see in this video, Atomic City by U2. So again, we're talking about what's going to happen in Vegas on 2/11, first day of the Year of the Dragon. By the way, Taylor Swift has generated a whopping $330 million for the NFL with this romance. And some have compared this romance to the romance of Princess Di with whoever that was that died with her. Welcome to the Death Star. Everything to know about the Las Vegas state-of-the-art Allegiant Stadium hosting the Super Bowl. Now, the zip code there has an 88 in it, 88. It's like 89118. The address 3333. Typical stuff. I mean, it's down the street from where they did the Harvest Festival psyop. And the same governor, I believe. There's a lot of overlap. And then there's this as well. This has to be mentioned. Live at the Sphere, Dead Forever. How ominous. Dead Forever, it's breaking, no, is it The Walking Dead, no, Grateful Dead, excuse me. So the Grateful Dead, some kind of reboot here, I don't know who's in it, but Dead Forever is being advertised at the Las Vegas Sphere. Band taking residence, recently announced. So again, something else here to look forward to. Now let's play this. Alex Jones on X has said that a Trump assassination would destroy the New World Order. He's speaking with Ivan Raiklin, and they're talking about making the deep state pay, but this entire conversation here is
Ivan Raiklin's assessment that if you assassinate any political presidential candidate, whether it's RFK, whether it's Trump, guess what? America will do the following immediately.
Yeah, now this is where they talk about how they have a list of all the bad people, and if they get Trump, they're going to get it. Now, they already have the list. They're already bad people, presumably eating children. So, why are you waiting for them to shoot Trump first? So it's almost like they're setting up a provocation and for a follow-up of many different psyops, retaliation psyops. Like I think this looks like it's a bigger script because listen how blatant they're being about this. They're not even, it's not even insinuation. It's not dog whistle. This is not stochastic terrorism. These are pretty open, I would say almost threats.
They will respond in kind, and they know who you are because we've created the list. So if you go
and that's
to
a major
those measures
Rubicon. They should know that.
immediately. You're going to see immediate response, and there are only a few buildings in Washington, D.C. that they will probably do that.
Well, I hope that's not the case, but these people are crazy.
And having said that, if they do that, option two.
Okay, here's more. I mean, it sounds like a lot of internet tough guy talk where they're just hyping up how bad they are and how they're going to take out the deep state. And I think Alex Jones even cries here for a moment.
Behind Trump is going to be so much better for us and so much worse.
Well, I was about
for
to
them.
say, if they kill him, that's best case scenario. From a sick level beating him, oh, please kill him, which but it's.
So here he is crying and he's saying, please kill Trump so we can do something.
So good after that.
Oh, it's going to be the best cleansing and the fastest cleansing that we've ever seen in my lifetime. I assess with almost certainty.
Now, I'm not sure who this expert is. He's a former DIA official, Ivan Raiklin, but they're talking, and Jones here is getting kind of histrionic, talking about how Trump might get it.
With the highest level of confidence that if they assassinate Trump, it is so game over for them, and it's going to be so fast.
Anyway, they rant about this for about an hour together. Okay, carry on. Simulation, not stimulation, says Scott Rankin. Yeah, as a rule, we have to be careful, or not careful, we have to be accurate in our terminology. When people say, oh, it's going to be a false flag, what they're saying is they're going to stimulate something so it happens. Well, no, that's not what happens. They don't stimulate, they simulate. And this is what they miss. So, they're not going to actually do what they're predicting in predictive programming at any point. They're preparing you for what they're going to fake. If they weren't going to fake it, they wouldn't have to prepare you for it. They prepare you for it because what they're doing is by nature extraordinary, or couldn't be relied upon to happen organically. So they have to make it happen. G says paper mache aliens are going to invade us soon. Yeah, I'm starting to think that the true alien agenda is all a psychological ploy to get people to open up on every level. Open up to sky people, open up your borders to the one world that the sky people are going to ask you to do anyway. Get rid of your guns because now it's world peace, no more nations. So now your home border, your home door, your front door is open. And then, of course, everybody has to be safe, so everybody has to be purified in the same way. So your skin is now porous, so everybody can take the injection. So, in other words, I think the alien agenda is getting people to embrace, on principle, as part of their operating system, anything. Just open. The opposite of what the other side is about. Open and close. I don't think there's actually any physical invasion, but if you think about it, if aliens arrive from Mars, all of our distinctions are now irrelevant because now we're all one. We're all human. And then we become peaceful. That's been the story all along. It's been this cliche about how aliens are going to straighten us out and bring about one world. Well, what happens if you dissolve all borders and you create one world and you get rid of distinctions? Yeah, eventually, this is what grays represent. Aliens being gray represent the mix of the black and white. And we're not talking in racial terms, we're talking about every single polarity being used to cancel out the other. And so aliens represent man perfected from the future, rising above earthly distinctions, ascendant, transcendent, technologically advanced, genderless, raceless, and emotionless. They all look the same. It's some kind of weird ideal they've created. And that's pretty much where we're going. So that's what the alien thing is about. So when people want to believe in aliens, well, think about how aliens are the replacement for angels. And angels are also somewhat like androgynous, perfected versions of man. And that recent movie, Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, has this same exact theme. If you haven't seen Asteroid City, I kind of recommend it if you understand his films. I mean, it's got a lot of interesting parts in it from the purposes of examining our metascript, and they have this scene where the people are praying to the aliens, like "Dear Father who art in heaven," the Lord's Prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven." They pray, "Dear aliens who art in space." Not a coincidence, because that's literally what they are. They're analogous constructs. Demetria 101 said the stadium opened on 731. Reverse it, 137 is the 33rd prime. Lots of important numbers. Anarchy Television says, the truth is, we're under a state of martial law occupied by foreign corporations called the United States 28 USC 300215A. Probably true. I agree with that. And it's even worse than that, though, because the level of control is far deeper than anybody really can conceive. It's like, who cares if they're trying to take your guns? They've already taken your minds. Like, the mind control goes so much deeper than any potential police state with people kneeling on your neck. I mean, and it's total control, and it's invisible. I mean, we're in a doomsday cult. At a very minimum, you have to agree with me on that point. If you don't believe we're in a doomsday cult, you don't watch the news, and you're a conspiracy theorist, and you're dangerous to society. Because the norm, the status quo, is that we're all going to die, and if you're not active about it, you're part of the problem. Okay, JT says it's just a head wound. Oh, yes, yes. Donald Trump is only going to get a head wound. It's going to be similar probably to the Reagan getting shot. I mean, we're talking about a PR stunt. You know, maybe instead of calling these things psyops, we should just call them corporate media PR stunts. Oh, another one of these corporate media PR stunts with simunition and fake dead kids. Instead of calling it a school shooting psyop. Because you call it a psyop, well, now you're using the same terminology as people who don't know what they're looking at. Because if we're looking at a magic show, they think they're looking at a crime scene. Okay, continuing. Scrapper Bob says aliens will be in the plugs and will take over the person. You know, I listened to this disturbing video today. Someone posted it in our Gilded chat about how it was really about the idea of Neuralink and how they don't need any hardware in order to already do this. And the video was suggesting it's already being done. And I was kind of joking last week when I said that I'm Neuralink, because oftentimes I'll think about something and then I'll see it in a video or an advertisement without even typing it or saying it. So it's like, okay, there's no way they're reading my thoughts. Well, then my main computer catches a virus and just dies right in front of me, won't even open to the password screen, and then I have this really incredible like chills just come over me, and then I get the flu and I get sick for a few days, or disease X is what I think I got. So I'm thinking maybe disease X is like a literal computer virus that they somehow managed to, in some kind of Neuralink, Bluetooth, Neuralinked um, wireless way, they transmit it and they infect you with it or something. Or it's a coincidence that my computer and me both got sick at the same time. And shout out to Cope for replacing the tower. If it wasn't for the generous support of our think tank members buying new parts, fixing things as this thing goes, we wouldn't be able to maintain the flow. And this flow is important because we've been keeping this thing going for years and we're gaining momentum. So we have a new computer, and the nice thing is the audio encoder that gets us playing on TuneIn, RadioNet, Radio King, all the audio channels that we're on, that computer is now a desktop instead of a laptop, and that laptop was lagging. It wasn't doing its job, so we're stronger now. And I have an editing computer, so we're going to have to do some productions. For example, we need to do maybe a 3-part series, a breakdown of January 6th, because we can't trust non-auto hoaxers to do the definitive documentaries debunking things if they don't see the big picture, because then they're just wrong. And that's just factually speaking. Factually speaking, the mainstream media is a liar. And it's just a question of how much is it lying, and it's close enough to truth in certain areas that people can live with it and they can live in the lie, but there is a distinction. And if we're trying to arrive at objective truth, we need to go ahead and make that distinction from the get-go. The red pillar will never arrive at truth because their frame of reference includes the mainstream view and they build on it. In other words, the so-called awakened red pill community exists in a subset of the mainstream delusion, but their version is scarier. They're scared of cirrus clouds in the water and immigrants. But the difference is simply they've added more onto it without subtracting the BS at the beginning, which is where you get these people who believe in, yeah, the moon landing's fake, but the secret space program is real. No, you haven't even demonstrated that space travel exists, and you're jumping ahead of that because you've assumed that the mainstream frame of reference has some validity, which it does, but you haven't deconstructed the areas where it doesn't. Dewis says, the more they have us fearing death, the easier it will be to sell us ascension into the metaverse and the metaverse and the cloud. There's a show on Amazon called Upload about this alternative heaven. So if you're not a traditionalist, you don't want to go to the Catholic heaven, you can go to this digital heaven, which is actually accessible via the cloud, where people on Earth can actually, through an app, buy you stuff that you can use up there in your simulated heaven. And having us fearing death, also making you feel guilty about breathing, guilty about your carbon footprint, making you recycle. When you recycle, you're just basically confessing your sins. You've accepted the premise of the new original sin of the carbon footprint, which I don't do. I'm not a polluter. I'm not a sinner. I don't go to church and I don't recycle. And you're meant to choose one of the two. In fact, they've merged the two, which makes perfect sense because the green religion is just an extension of traditional religions dressed up as science. That's all it really is. You can go to NBC.com and look for NBC Climate Confessionals, where these libs will kneel in front of the TVs and very prayerfully they'll think about all of the things they didn't do to please Gaia, and they will confess their climate sins. There's some lady on there who's always confessing every Sunday. She's like, I used too many paper towels to clean up after my cat. Gaia, please forgive me. It's like, sorry. But eventually the CCP is going to get your docs and you're probably going to be executed. Like, I wouldn't volunteer that kind of information. Okay, continuing. Diana South says, "Did the film crew bring Disease X to your computer?" I'm thinking that maybe Marcus Goldfinch broke in here one of these nights, sabotaged it. Scrapper Bob, good point, says, "It's impossible to imagine what NASA has done with all that money all these years. They probably do have Mars under Arizona." I absolutely think that is the case. I mean, if you think about it, and I've seen the buildup. We've been taught that space travel takes forever. You need a generational ship. You're going to some exoplanet super far away. But then one day out of nowhere, Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, no, we can just take wormholes. Because there is this new system of exoplanets they called the TRAPPIST system. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, hey, these are all in the Goldilocks zone. These are all Earths. But they're like 6 trillion light years away. But if you could take a wormhole, you could get there much faster. And then I started looking into these things called celestial autobahns, where there's these theories that you can go into space and reach certain areas where you're able to play off the gravitational tug of various bodies and accelerate and go much faster. So they're coming up with different ways to reduce the amount of time to go to these so-called exoplanets. In other words, the term hyperloop was coined by Elon Musk. So when you are buying your ticket to Mars because you're done with the MAGAs and the global warming, they could hyperloop you to your underground fake Mars base. And they would say, yeah, you're taking a wormhole. You'll be there in a couple of days. And it'll feel like a wormhole when you're just going around in circles, like a Disney ride. So the technology for faking space travel not only exists, but it's probably already being used. I mean, there's probably already a generation or two of Martians, and they probably hate us. And they're probably waiting to invade and get rid of us because of what we're doing to the Earth. Because on Mars, they're not living like we're living here on Earth. Mars is going to be some kind of space communist hellhole. And that's been the case from the beginning. You got to look into Constantine, one of the early rocket pioneers in Russia. Occultist, theosophist, believed in panpsychism, which is kind of where I'm leaning these days. The idea this universe is just everything is intelligence, everything is sentient, and that the universe is meant to be explored, that mankind's future evolution is becoming multiplanetary. This is where Elon Musk got all of his ideas, from this Russian guy named Constantine, who came up with the concept of space communism as the ideal. And there's a book about it that came out like 120 years ago called Red Star, about how the humans that moved to Mars set up communism and they perfect it. And then the next objective is, how do we bring that back down here to Earth? And that's what it's always going to be. Because the Mars program has always just been a way to sell capitalists on communism. It's genius. Because the capitalists, they know that the green movement is just a stalking horse for communism. They're like, oh, look, watermelon Marxism, green on the outside, red on the inside, Greta doesn't fool them. They recognize Al Gorliani and the Environmental Protectionist Agency is just there to take a cut of everything. And that you can pay your way through their various schemes to pollute more. So it's not really about, in principle, saving the earth. It's about money, control, and regulation. They see this. But the same people who see through the fakery of the green movement think space travel is real, it's cool, and it's the end result of years of free market technology. That America took us to the moon. That Americaism is going to take us to space. We have a McDonald's on Mars. They believe this stuff. They think it's capitalism. And it's like, no, the space program is fake. But they use that to sell you on the idealism of environmentalism. And you can't separate space travel from environmentalism and sustainability and all that, all those buzzwords. It's the same utopianism. So in other words, yeah, the space program will lead you to your communist hellhole. It's not freedom, despite what Jeff Bezos says. Jeff Bezos is like, and this is in 2017, he was saying that we're going to have a civilization of stasis, that freedom is not going to be sustainable if Earth's going to be habitable. So if you want freedom, you got to go to space. So in other words, if you want to be free, you're going to have to be sent in one of these hyperloop tunnels to one of these deep underground military bases dressed up like some Truman Show version of a Mars base. That's your freedom now, which is the opposite of freedom. It's total restriction of movement. No one's going to live above ground for multiple generations. Okay, continuing. This is where it's at. It says a homeless woman killed a Hollywood executive or producer. She's 33 years old. Homeless women are on killing sprees. Yeah, look, until we quarantine the 33-year-olds, we're not going to have peace. I mean, just 1 year is all I ask. Just 1 year. Let's go ahead and. Oh, okay, that was Michael Latt, 33-year-old CEO of Lead with Love and social justice activist. This has been a theme for like the last year. Have you noticed social justice activists getting killed by those they're trying to help? The right loves these. This is probably fake. Like that one social justice warrior who was killed by someone who tried to help while his girlfriend was checking her Tinder on her phone. You probably remember that one. Yeah, loved ones are mourning a Hollywood exec who was shot and killed. Michael Latt, 33, killed in his home. Social justice advocate. Well, FAFO, right? He found out. Okay, Monday, a woman entered his home and shot him in the head. It was a random act of violence. Alleged. I mean, it's probably fake. She's got a $3 million bail. I don't know much about it other than it's fake until proven real. Look, the guy who just decapitated his father, we called his age before they announced it, 33. Again, there won't be any peace until we do something about 33-year-olds. Taylor Swift. Now she's 34 now, but she started all this crap when she turned 33. Last year we were looking at Candace Owen, same thing. Q Shaman. It's a thing. All right, continuing. Alex praying and begging for a Trump assassination. Continue looking at that. One new development on Justin Moan, and I see some people have been calling me Tim Osmone, because Justin Moan, the guy who killed his FBI father and threatened to go take out the deep state, just like Jones wants to do, yeah, he seems to be a psyop character templated on yours truly. And when I first saw it, just being objective, I'm like, this guy kind of looks like me in a weird way. Like he's maybe some kind of weird, bizarro version of me. And the more I looked into his story, the more I'm like, wait a minute. I'm suing Google. He's suing the government. He just published some crazy book. I just published a crazy book. Like, what are they doing here? And weirdly enough, a week before Justin Moan did this, I had a caller who actually said that they wanted a French Revolution style takeout of the deep state and the Democrats and the media. So I'm like, wait a minute here. It's a good thing I didn't endorse violence. It's a good thing I've recently endorsed inactivism. I'm an inactivist peacenik because it seems like everyone's going to go lose their heads, and I don't want to be dragged in with that. I do not believe in violent, bloody revolution. Scrapper Bob says, what about an underground massive? Yeah, there could be multiple cities. I mean, the idea of deep underground military bases converted into space bases explains a lot. I've encountered some strange videos. Like there's this one individual who claimed that he was part of some secret project where he was like, quote, jumping to Mars, some kind of ship or time travel, some sci-fi experience that he had, right? He claims he saw Obama on Mars. Now this sounds crazy, but now thinking about it, if you had a crazy brainwashed person, it would be like that TV show that ran for 10 episodes. It was called Space Cadets, where they had 5 people convinced they went to space. Well, I could see convincing someone that they went to Mars through Hyperloop in a sufficiently convincing underground base. And do you remember that other guy? Was it Dr. Robert Knight, the former CIA operative? He was on InfoWars, and he claimed that when he was in the CIA, there was evidence of children being sent to Mars. And he said this on InfoWars, which is usually, you wouldn't even take that seriously. However, NASA responded. NASA denies InfoWars' claim that they run slave colonies on Mars. They actually responded. This was in 2017 when Alex Jones hosted a guest who swore NASA uses children as sex slaves on Mars. The agency responded. This is Robert David Steele, who fake died of COVID after preparing to do a nationwide tour and embezzling all the money and spending it on expensive hotels and champagne and stuff. Conveniently died. NASA denies InfoWars' claim that they run a slave colony. According to Robert David Steele, we believe there's a colony on Mars populated by children who are sent into space on a 20-year ride, Steele said. Once they get to Mars, they have no alternative but to be slaves on the colony. 90% of NASA missions are secret, I've been told, by high-level NASA engineers, and you have no idea there's so much stuff going on. Now, that sounds crazy. Robert David Steele, former CIA, it sounds crazy, or it sounded crazy, rather, but it doesn't now. It wouldn't be a 20-year ride. They got there in a few hours on a Hyperloop, if that, maybe just a few minutes. I mean, they're just going beneath Arizona or something. And then they grew up. They spent 20 years being raised on a Martian base. Like, what if the entire time deep space has been deep underground? What's more likely? Billions of dollars a year, and all we get are these crappy graphics, artists' conceptions of what it might look like far, far away? What's more likely? That they're actually paying these artists a lot of money, or that these graphics are all that expensive? Look at the shoddy special effects on the space station. I could make that in my garage. That's not $1 billion operation. So it's all going into the ground, I think. Elephant Tusk says, the Internet of Bodies. They brag about this at the WEF, hackable humanity. Oh yes, we're hackable animals, and I did watch a video about the Internet of Bodies. This is where it's at, says Moonbase 8, a TV show about a space simulation. Yes, well, I'll have to check that one out as well. Moonbase 8 follows 3 subpar astronauts on one of several NASA Moonbase training simulators in Winslow, Arizona, hoping to be picked to go to the actual moon base. Fascinating. And that's probably what they think. You know how many of these poor fools are in these Mars preparation centers? It's like going to a prison in Siberia. You're going to go live in a tent, close quarters with 8 people at the edge of the world to simulate Mars? That's what I said. The capitalists, the freedom-loving people have been sold on the premise that the ultimate in freedom looks like a Siberian outpost. Like it looks like a desolate landscape and a small prison and confined quarters with a bunch of people. That's their preparation for Mars. It's about isolation, training people to be isolated. That's what most of it is about. So there are so many people living in these various conditions, and I could see them being duped. Like, yeah, we're going to let you go to the real Mars. They just sound like a lot of dupes. I mean, there's no way they could fake a moon base right now. I don't think they could do it convincingly. Have you noticed how the only thing they send to the moon are these really crappy cartoon-looking landers? All right, continuing. Diana South said, who would label people as social justice advocates? A silly detail about another nobody, an actor. Okay, that's a good question. They already have these narratives as to who they are. Like, for example, those 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans who were found dead in their backyard, they froze, hypothermia. Well, why did they tell us, oh, these 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans froze? What if 2 were fans of the Chiefs and one liked the 49ers? What if one of them hated football? Would they have said 2 Kansas City Chief fans and a guy that hates football died? Or a Kansas City fan, a 49ers fan, and a Raiders fan died? Like, are they going to break down the casualties by their preference of a football team? Why not religion? Oh, a Christian, a Muslim, and an atheist just died. Or, no, a Christian, a Muslim, and a football fan. Like, they're giving you these points that they're only doing it because it's part of some bigger narrative. I'm with you on that. Dinah South says, I'm a peacenik too. Yeah, I'm an avowed peacenik. And I'm also anti-war. I'm a conscientious objector to the mind war. And anybody who is a part of the info war cannot claim to be anti-war. So in other words, If you're a propaganda mule running some red pill psyop on me, saying, hey, you need to be afraid of military age males coming across the border, I'm going to call you a warmonger. And I've been saying for a little while that the Save the Children psyop, like, oh, the Save the children, vote for Trump. Oh, the children, which children? The ones being trafficked by the deep state. Their adrenochrome is being harvested. Okay, well, that was 2015. So those children are presumably having been raised in New World Order daycare centers. They're all voting Democrat. They're all WEF types. Like, they've grown up, they're going to vote Democrat. So you didn't save those children on time. I remember at the same time being warned about military age males coming across the border. Well, they've been saying that so long, most of these military age males are probably too old now for the military. Isabel Ann says, I hope Bezos sprays champagne on me when I get to Mars. Yeah, Bezos' champagne spraying is legendary, and it's every bit as it's the best way to describe it is this guy is the high priest in a fertility cult, and when you look at him spraying champagne on people after his launches, it has another meaning because we're looking at the high priest of Mystery Babylon. If you don't know what we're talking about, here's an image of Jeff Bezos cosplaying as a cowboy. Kind of like Musk does. What's with billionaires cosplaying as cowboys going out to Texas? Here's what it is. Like, why did Bezos wear a cowboy hat to go to fake space? Because this is part of the bifurcated war. They want to make the case that we can't let private industry lead the way to space. We can't let capitalists do it. Space cowboys. They're going to wreck it all. They're going to doom us all. They're going to put too much space junk up there. Elon Musk, too much space junk, too much mind junk on X. You see the pattern here? Too rich, too influential, too much power to affect all mankind. They're making examples out of these individuals. Space cowboys, reckless. There was a documentary on Netflix, which means a prediction for the future, called Mars. They had two groups go to Mars. One was a group of men from Texas with cowboy hats who went to Mars to drill. In other words, they're raping Mars, like they did Gaia. And on the other side, you had the group of female scientists who went to Mars to look for life. So the female scientists go to Mars and they find life, but before they can do anything with it, the males cause a Mars quake with their drilling and everybody dies. So it's kind of a lesson here. When we go to Mars, are we going to be led by toxic masculinity, space cowboys, the desire to increase profit for the oil industries, or are we going to go looking for life, respecting nature, green? So it's all culture war stuff. So even wearing the cowboy hat with his overtly phallic rocket, and they say that his workplace is sexist at Blue Oregon, you look at all this stuff, it's all about conveying the image of toxic masculinity, which has been platformed by Elon Musk, who is so deep in the culture war that his trans son left him and changed her name and disavowed the wealth. So you can see that these are all just actors as well. Anx G said it would explain all the weird underground booms people hear. Oswaldo says, Scotty hyperloop me up. Oh, that's a Mandela effect. He never said hyperloop me up. Oswaldo says, like Matt Damon farming potatoes on Mars. Yeah, that's the new ideal. You'll be a Mars potato farmer. You won't have an iPhone. You won't have, social media. Why would you need any of that? Clout, attention, everything that we're about in the West doesn't have a place on Mars. You're going to be too busy farming potatoes. Diana South says, unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, rescued after 15 years in a cult, decides to reclaim her life, venturing to New York. I've seen a couple episodes of that. And it perfectly describes humanity right now, where she's 15 and she's put into a bunker, and the cult leader tells her and all her friends that the world has been nuked and they can't leave. So they're kept in a room where they're doing his laundry. I think they're cranking something to keep his man cave power on with the generator. But this cult leader, has these women convinced that the world has been destroyed. So they stay in their bunkers. And I think that's the future for mankind. That we're being conditioned to accept bunker life. You're going to have to obey NASA, leave the world behind. All the codes they've been telling us in these movies, leave the world behind, ends with the girl who represents Greta, who actually survives, is the one who goes into the tunnel, who goes underground, so she can behold the end war live on TV, watch the end of Friends, while everyone else dies because they weren't paying attention. Okay, continuing. We talked about Vegas. It's going to get nuked. At least the Metascript says it will be. And look, the nuke could be a purely a psychological thing, mind blown, mental shock, a traumatic experience. And I also want to point this out because in the last year, we've been seeing a lot of Barbieheimer. And Taylor Swift may be another Barbie archetype. Does she not need men? She's blonde. Barbie feminism. I'm not sure how much of that is part of her persona, but the Barbie archetype is the Whore of Babylon. It's this new goddess construct that they've given to the masses, and it's very occult. And it goes into actually the sexual revolution and Satanism, high level Gnostic Catholic mass sex magic stuff. But they're giving it to your kids. But when you look at it, Barbie represents the splitting of the nuclear family. Barbie feminism. If you watch the movie, it begins where all the little girls are taught by Barbie to smash the heads of their baby dolls on the rocks and embrace selfishness, treat men as superfluous, as Ken. So the Kenification of the American male. Man's superfluous. At the end of the movie, Barbie becomes a real woman with real parts, and Ken, yeah, he's still just a nub. You see the future here. So the splitting of the nuclear family, and you have Oppenheimer, the splitting of the atom. Now, Adam, also the first male, Adam, splitting, castrating, cutting, and you also have the splitting of Adam as in when his rib is taken out and they create Eve, and that again, that destroys, that leads to chaos. Eve is like Pandora. In fact, in the Barbie movie, she's compared to Pandora. Pandora's box, putting Barbie back in the box. All of this stuff is very symbolic on multiple levels. But the main thing here is Barbieheimer is about the splitting of our world, the splitting of the nuke, the splitting of reality, entering a new age, a new paradigm. So there's something up here, and I would even say that she's Babylon and the bomb represents the beast. There's some kind of revelation connection here. And interestingly, Godzilla, which came out at the same time, is a metaphor for the atomic bomb, and it's a beast. So there's Barbieheimer, Barbiezilla. There's something here in the Metascript that you can really dig into. And when I watched the Godzilla movie, everything that I had predicted about it really kind of, I said it was going to be a right-wing culture warrior. That Godzilla is going to be like MAGA. And I was right. Even though he represents the nuke and the bomb itself and the destruction of these cities, what the movie has as the main theme is the reintegration of a decimated family. That was an orphan. There's a man here, a woman here. He's got friends, and they all say, hey, make an honest woman out of her, raise the kid, become a family, think about the future, sacrifice the now. So the Godzilla movie is about sacrificing your present desires and needs for the future in the name of traditional values and the nuclear family, building it back after it's been destroyed. Meanwhile, the Barbie movie is about the complete opposite. And furthermore, one more connection here. Godzilla was created as a result of the atomic bomb tests. Think Bikini Island. Bikini Kill is on a shirt in the movie Leave the World Behind, and he's wearing it when they reference the atom bomb. Bikini Kill is a feminist band, feminazis. So there you have Barbie feminism, Bikini Kill. And of course, Bikini Islands, it's where we get the phrase bombshell. Bombshell being associated with a woman in a bikini comes from the atomic bomb tests. So there you have, again, another connection with Barbie, the bombshell, connected with this Oppenheimer theme and the nukes. And it goes deeper when you look into Margot Robbie, who played in the movie Babylon, which even further underscores how this is the Whore of Babylon goddess archetype they've introduced. It's idol worship. Okay, let's move on. Diana says the Godzilla movie was really great. Oh, yes, I thought it was a really good movie, actually. The Barbie movie, it, it was a comedy, but I had a notebook, and every single frame of that movie, I mean, when I say multiple meanings, it represents the Babylon working. You know, we talk about the Babylon working, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and Marjorie Cameron. Well, Marjorie Cameron is a key figure in understanding all of this, and she, of course, this red-headed archetype was called, in this particular context, as a priestess, they called her Babylon. And this is all very deep in the weeds, dark occult stuff. But I'm saying is that it's been mainstreamed. And the person who directed the movie Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome about this process of the new goddess, his name is Kenneth Anger. He wrote the book Hollywood Babylon, and the movie Babylon is based on that book. So, in other words, a Satanist writes a book, they make a movie about it. This Satanist worships this goddess. Well, guess who starred in the movie Babylon? Margot Robbie. So that you have direct connections between Barbie and the Whore of Babylon, and of course, the sexual revolution and Satanism is all in there as well. But that's not where we're at right now specifically, other than to point out this is the year of Barbieheimer, and so we have this Barbie archetype Taylor Swift, and all this nuke symbolism being pointed at Vegas. And then there's another connection. Let me point this out as well. So if you remember last year, Taylor Swift wins Grammy for All Too Well. This was last February. On Sunday, the 33-year-old stepped out for the 65th Grammy Award. So she's 33, she gets her Grammy. At the same event, Beyonce breaks record for most Grammys in history, 33rd Grammy. So you have Swift and Beyonce at the same place, very prominent 33s. Again, it was Beyonce who performed at the Blackout Bowl number 47 with the 33 Minutes of Darkness. Now get this. That was 11 years and 9 months until, it will be 11 years and 9 months exactly as of the Super Bowl. So on Super Bowl Sunday will be 11 years, 9 months from the Blackout Bowl. So I put this down here. Beyonce Swift connection could be something about the opposite side of the Blackout Bowl, and I thought maybe a flash of light would explain it. Okay, continuing. I have quite a lot of content to talk about with regard to the fake space stuff, but we'll get to that here in a moment. We're mostly paying attention at the moment to Vegas, and of course this thing with Trump and this oncoming thing with Taylor Swift, whatever's going to happen there. And I talked about this earlier this week. Can't shake it off how Taylor Swift became a Nazi idol. So she has betrayed all of the incels. Think about that, the incels, the guys with the guns, the holy warriors, the ones who hate Western women, who want to take away their right to vote, and who want them barefoot pregnant in the kitchen at 13 and all this stuff. That's the MAGA band type. And the MAGA band have been betrayed by someone they consider to be an idol. Michelle Castor said, I kept wondering about the Obey t-shirt. It has Andre the Giant's face. Okay, if you remember, they had two characters side by side. One said Obey, one said NASA. That's some blatant stuff there. But the Obey shirt comes from a skating company, and the designer is the same guy who designed the shirt Hope, the Obama Hope poster. So the Obamas make a movie, leave the world behind. A character is wearing an Obey shirt, a character is wearing a Bikini Kill shirt, and a character is wearing a NASA shirt. All these things connect. Bikini Kill is a reference simultaneously to Barbie feminism and the nuke. And specifically, Ethan Hawke has that shirt, and someone says, my son could sleep through an atomic bomb. But Obey, again, Obey and Hope. And another connection here is in 2013, the year of the Blackout Bowl, there was a movie National Geographic put out called American Blackout. And then President Obama had a cameo where he said, paraphrasing, obey the authorities because it's a blackout. Obey because it's chaos, obey, obey, obey. So Trump was already telling us to obey in the wake of an American blackout. And then 10 years later, he comes out with this movie and it literally says obey. And of course, Higher Ground is his company that put it out there. This is where it's at. It says Taylor Swift is flying in from Japan for the big game. That could be another connection. Do you remember there was a tsunami in Japan recently? And I looked on Drudge, and all the photos showed people in black and white. And I was like, it looks like the movie Godzilla came to life. There was even a crack in the ground, like Godzilla had stepped there. Like, I think Godzilla attacked Japan a couple months ago. But yes, her flight from Japan to the game is 13 hours. Another of the 13s associated with her. Okay, let's continue. We have something here. Oh, yes. We're going to get into some of the Trump stuff. Let's get into this really quick here. So the movie Taxi Driver was a huge influence on John Hinckley Jr. You know, the guy that shot Reagan? Coincidentally, John Hinckley had JFK's birthday of May 29th. Yeah, the guy who shot JFK, the guy who shot Reagan had the same birthday as the president who was shot. Kind of a fascinating connection here, but Hinckley was also associated with the Bushes. Some people thought that the Bushes knew him. But here's what I'm pointing out, because I was looking at these connections earlier today. The movie Joker was largely based on Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese, the director of Taxi Driver, was involved as a producer in the pre-production of Joker. He wasn't in the actual production, but he was there on the screenplay. So in other words, it's about people who reach a breaking point and start killing people. If you haven't seen the Joker movie, it has a lot of connections to Taxi Driver. Now, the reason why I brought this up, though, is there's a scene where Joker shoots this TV host, and I thought that could be predictive programming for this shooting of Trump. And of course, the TV host is Robert De Niro, who is the main actor in Taxi Driver. Just some interesting connections here. And if you didn't catch this, conspiracy theorist and author of the upcoming book Jeb and the Bush Crime Family, Roger Stone, alleges that George H.W. Bush played a role in the assassination attempt against Ronald Reagan. So George W. Bush was associated with that, and some say he was actually there when JFK was shot. We were looking at the Georgia Guidestones in this connection as well, just because there's some predictive programming that we were analyzing last year. So just a quick reminder, if you don't remember this stuff. Trump kicked off his campaign in Waco when he was 76. And that number stood out to me, 76, because 76 people had died in Waco. And on the following 7/6, which is July 6, George W. Bush turned 76. And he'd be like one of the more famous skull and bonesmen. And the Georgia Guidestones had their capstone blasted. And when you look at it from above, the Georgia Guidestones looked like a skull and crossbones. The 4 columns and the capstone. And for years, people had pointed out there's a blood stain on half of the capstone. Well, that capstone is the part that was blown up. And so if you look at it from this perspective, it's kind of an interesting way of looking at maybe even a headshot. So the connection here is the headshot of the Georgia Guidestones. They're 42 years old on George Bush's 76th birthday on 7/6. So we were looking at this, and then 2 days later, Shinzo Abe, or Abe, like Abe Lincoln, he gets assassinated. And this is significant because he is close friends with Donald Trump. And this was 2 days after the July 4th, or 4 of 7, 4th of July, the 4th of July shooting at that 4th of July parade. And that was very significant because the shooter had a 47 tattooed on the side of his head, and he was obsessed with Lee Harvey Oswald and going to Trump rallies, just as the new Trump hat has a 47 on the side. So we've been seeing foreshadowing in some direct and somewhat indirect ways, but more or less connecting the same kind of points leading to something here. In other words, we're looking at the story as it's unfolding. Again, the Death Star is the name for the Allegiant Stadium. Why do they call it a Death Star? By the way, Death Star is Darth Vader's. What is it? Is it a real thing they hollowed out? Whatever it is, it's his spherical space weapon. But the Death Star happens to look 100% exactly like the moon of Saturn, one of its moons called Mimas. If you haven't seen the connection, Mimas looks exactly like the Death Star. And I came across this after recognizing that Darth Vader is a Saturn archetype. So Darth Vader, Saturn, Luke is the sun. So the idea that Darth Vader would have a weapon that looks like one of Saturn's moons is actually very consistent symbolically. But what does this mean? Not quite sure, but the fact that it's called a Death Star and now you have the Saturn. Saturn is the Terminator, T2. Kronos, very much associated with the nuke thing. Even T2. T is the cross, and then you put that with a 2, you get the symbol of Saturn. Terminator. The Terminator line is when night kills the day. It's the dividing line between night and day. So the Terminator is also Saturn, the ruler of night. So there's a theme building here. We'll see where it goes. Again, U2 drops Atomic City. U2 detonating Atomic City at the Sphere. Another Sphere reference. But moreover, U2, a big spy plane dropping a bomb. There's something here. And again, I mentioned this again. Mike Gill, member of the Trump administration, shot and killed. Seems like a buildup. Taylor Swift is dead to us. Now, someone posted this today. This is from his doctor's office. Fresenius Plymouth Creek. Dear patient, this letter is included for you to keep in case of a curfew being put into place by law enforcement. A curfew could take effect for different reasons such as weather, lockdown, or civil unrest. If you get stopped, you can show this letter as proof that you're a patient needing treatment. I've never seen something like this before, but I mean, this is an interesting thing to show up at this time because we've been kind of wondering. Let's say they do a EMP, electromagnetic pulse, high altitude nuke, or dirty bombs. More likely. In fact, National Guard in Texas last year, or a couple years ago, were doing drills for drone-borne dirty bombs. So let's say they pull something like that off. It's just going to be a lot of lockdowns. That's all. You're going to be able to behold the end war live. Now, I say that because behold the end war live is an anagram for leave the world behind, which is telling you go into the bunkers and watch it all on TV, which is what that character does at the end. Okay, let's listen to Alex Jones talk about the secret memo. I love all these secret memos and secret documents and secret societies that you sneak into their secret parties. Like, okay, so secret means what? Viral on X? Like, at what point is it not secret anymore? Anyway, here is a secret memo that says the Border Patrol is getting ready for white supremacist attacks. Now, you'll notice Bill Hicks does not say, get ready for a hoax. No. Bill Hicks is saying, get ready for the real thing.
We've got a great team on the border right now, Chase Geyser and some amazing other people. I'm not going to say their names. And they met with good federal agents today who showed them the memo that they're saying imminent white supremacist attacks in Eagle Pass. Now, whether that's a real threat or not, the point is good people gave us this information. It fits into the whole Biden narrative to demonize the American people and to try to legitimize a totally open border and all the crime and all the sex trafficking that's happening. So obviously, we believe it's probably a false flag. There are some actual crazy people out there as well in this whole crisis that America is in right now.
Remember, the guy that just chopped off his dad's head said it was time to go to war with the immigrants. And then you have the MAGA Army of God, truckers with guns going down to the border to fight the aliens. And I remember I said this last year. I said, if aliens arrive, you're going to see MAGAs with shotguns getting ready to fight the aliens. And I was talking about extraterrestrials. But look what's happening. Clearly, it's the same agenda.
I'd say 90% chance that, yeah, they're probably provocateurs. But regardless, this is real intel. This is real information. We've got crew down there right now. We're reporting on it all.
It's like Ray Epps is going to be down there shoot the immigrants, and someone's going to do it, and then they're going to say it's real, and something's going to happen. That's how it's going to roll. And no one's going to say it was a hoax. They're going to say it was an inside job. The feds did it. So the left is going to say, look what you guys did on the right. All your hate has caused immigrants to die. And on the right, they're going to say, no, it was a false flag. It was a false flag. Ray Epps told us to do it. Tucker Carlson will say, it was an inside job. Ray Epps said to do it. Because if Ray Epps says to do it, then you don't have any willpower. Like if Ray Epps is there and there's 10,000 people and he says, run to the Capitol, they're all going to do it and it's not their fault. Let's see here. Ice Cube admits gangster rap was a CIA psyop to sow division in America. Well, if you want to be objective about it, you could say this about media in general, that every aspect of our popular entertainment is controlled and steered in such a way to divide people into two categories. So this is not a surprise. But what's interesting, and Vision for the Blind remarked on this, and we've talked about Ice Cube. He was in a show called Are We There Yet?, where there was a monkey flu pandemic and lockdown, but since he was in the FBI or something, he knew it was a hoax, and he told them there was a hoax, and that he was going to Vegas to party. Meanwhile, they had to stay locked down. That was like in 2015 or something, or maybe even sooner. So Ice Cube admitting gangster rap is a CIA psyop. This is one of the themes in that movie, They Cloned Tyrone. Interestingly, in 1986, at the age of 16, Ice Cube began rapping in a trio called CIA before joining NWA. So he was with the CIA before he was with NWA. I'm glad someone did this. Rest in Peace Globe did this. A juxtaposition of the hair of an astronaut in the fake ISS and of women floating around in airplanes on parabolic flights simulating zero-G experience. And if you look, the hair in zero-G moves around like hair would be expected to. The hair on the ISS sticks straight up like it's been stiffened with too much hairspray. That's why there's a hole in the ozone. Look at all that hairspray they're using. But I want to point out that the new movie ISS knew this was a problem. They knew that if they had their actresses with their hair sticking straight up, it would look silly. But it would be consistent with the ISS, according to NASA. But they knew they couldn't fake it or simulate it to look like it does with these individuals on the parabolic flight, because then it would make the ISS look bad by comparison. So the movie version of the ISS had women with their hair slicked and tied down. No loose hairs. Why weren't there any loose hairs in that movie? It wasn't because they can't fake it. It's because they don't want to make the ISS look terrible by comparison. Okay, so today is Saturnday, 2/3/2024. A lot happening. Jack Posobiec has claimed, they've reclaimed Taylor Swift as their own, and they're now celebrating February as White History Month. And just last month, Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, who has several multi-million-dollar properties now, very wealthy guy, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there's a lot of money in this type of politicking. So Charlie Kirk is saying that MLK is a fraud and we need to do away with the Civil Rights Act. So that's where they're at. And now they're saying this is White History Month, and Jack Posobiec is leading the way. Former naval intelligence, kind of like Steve Bannon, part of the same crew, very big on pushing moral panic, satanic panic, and QAnon and Pizzagate. That's where they come from. So these agitators are at the point now where they're bringing back their frog memes and their Taylor Swift, Aryan Princess. A raccoon has knocked out power for thousands of people in Toronto. That's weird. Speaking of, we were talking about this yesterday. There's a music video for the opening track on Leave the World Behind, and the video is called Revenge. And in this video, Revenge, it has an individual setting off, or rather, detonating something, and it creates a blackout. So it's called The Revenge by Joey Badass. We talked about this yesterday, just worth repeating. one more time because this is the song that opens Leave the World Behind, The Revenge. That's why I think the movie was kind of a revenge fantasy by the Obamas against, well, if you've listened to the night, you'll see where I'm going at, but I recommend you check that out. So much more to go through. We'll have to come back tomorrow. I didn't even get a chance to get into my Twitter feed, and there's just so much happening there. Let's see. They're already here said, IPS just put out another classic summation of today's times. Quote, the authority of the screen. Yes, the authority of the screen. That is the logical fallacy at the base of the skewed worldview that most people have adopted as the real thing. It's that they have accepted as implicit the authority of the screen, that it's somehow objective, that it's a window to the world to let you know what's happening at a distance, when in fact it's a filter and always has been. Let me just play this one more clip here. Speaking of satanic panic, this is John Hamill saying, the nation has made enemies through idolatry, witchcraft, and secret societies. Like, he's not wrong about this, if you think about it.
And innovators for compromising the integrity of our foundational covenant with you, making deals with our enemies through idolatry, witchcraft, false religions, and secret orders, secret societies.
Now he goes on, he says that they need to annul all covenants with Baal and Molech and Ashtoreth. Well, I'm sorry, but Ashtoreth, that'd be Ishtar, Isis, that would be Barbie, Taylor Swift, the goddess. Molech, MLK, actually, interestingly, the symbolism here, the dying sun god in death. Baal is another name, Lord, another name of the obelisk deity. But all these people who are praying and saying they need to get away from Baal worship, you know what? Every single time they send a rocket into space, that is a religious rite venerating Baal. You're all Baal worshippers as long as you accept the paradigm given to you by NASA.
Forgive our betrayal, Jesus. We return to covenant with you alone. We return to Jesus. In your mercy, according to Isaiah 28.
Now, shouldn't they be praying to Trump? I mean, aren't they confused?
Restore our freedom.
Anyway, moving on. The religiosity is going to intensify on both sides. And you can't just mock the right and say they're too religious or they're too much into conspiracy theory, because the left worships Gaia. They worship the Whore of Babylon. And their conspiracy theories have the approval of science, so they don't get branded that way, but it's the same thing. Tomorrow, I guess we'll spend more time talking about the international fake station. Here's an example, just really quick here, kettle and pot. Amazing Polly has put out a list of all the alt media personalities who are contracted with the wellness company. And the wellness company polices their content. So the following content creators are policed: Zuby, RSBN, Salty Cracker, Todd Starnes, Roseanne Barr, Jack Posebek, Pete Santilli, Charlie Kirk, John Fredericks, X22 Report, and Russell Brand. Just a list here. I would add Amazing Polly to that list. It's like a sneaky move. They try to make it look like, yeah, we're authentic. We're calling out the feds, like Baked Alaska calling out Ray Epps. It's clever. I don't fall for it. I think we all know the truth here. Anyway, thanks for joining. We'll be back tomorrow. A lot more to cover. This is Shill Scanner, Full Red Pill. I'm going to be up late building up new archives, and tomorrow I'm going to kick up the 24/7. So thanks for joining. Appreciate all the comments, and archives will be in the email.
Get the fuck out. Rich squad, motherfuckers, roll out. Keep your pics up so all the globies can see we're in a motherfucking cotton prison, don't even agree. What the fuck is wrong with society? And why am I such an anomaly? Everybody lives in idiocracy. Force-fed these deceptive theories exploiting the innocent youth. Why do we believe these lies that are presented to us as truth? Pseudoscientific nonsense. In this universe of expanding bullshit, other worlds don't exist. We are trapped on this plane of existence. Like this game of risk, checkerboard, convictive sectors. 3rd degree slices of the pipe within the vectors. Beehive colony, you collect the nectar. Earth's broke down, man, someone call the record. Why? I can tell you about some things that gonna blow your mind. Everything that you've been taught throughout your life's a lie. Indoctrinated to regret your perception, just to believe a school lesson so you can pass to the next one. Brainwash so you trust the authority. They want you to think you're the minority. Don't stoke the flame superiority. They'll come to see the fat majority.